This is Rick Rule for Rule Investment Media, sponsors and producers of the Boca Raton Natural Resources Investment Conference, formerly, by the way, known as the Sprott Natural Resources Investment Conference. Today, I have the extraordinary pleasure of interviewing a former partner and the current CEO of Sprott Inc., until very recently my boss. Now, as a large shareholder, I'm his boss. Whitney, first of all, thank you for years of toiling on behalf of investors. Thank you much more recently for 10 years of toiling on my behalf. It's a delight to interview you, and I really thank you for taking part in this process.
It's great to be here, Rick. Thank you very much for your time.
Let's begin by learning a bit about Whitney George. How did you come to be CEO of Sprott? What did you do before Sprott? And also give us a little bit, a thumbnail history of Sprott, so we have some sense of how we got to where we are today.
Sure. Well, I started in the industry with a history major out of college in 1980. I was a very unsuccessful retail broker. I became a more successful analyst, and then 10 or so years into my career, I went to work for my best customer, Chuck Royce, at Royce & Associates, where I built a research team, ultimately became co-CIO and partners with Chuck, and I was there for 23 years, managing mutual funds in a small cap value strategy. Chuck is still running Royce & Associates, and it became apparent to me some 8 years ago that Chuck really didn't want to have a successor, and that I would be sitting around for quite some time as my performance fell off from what had been remarkable to very unremarkable for a period of time. The politics became difficult, and I decided that I needed a new career opportunity. So that was a little over 8 years ago. Royce had been large investors in Sprott Inc. Sprott came public. It was Eric Sprott's firm. He had carved out the asset management business in roughly 2000, I believe, and built one of the most successful hedge funds in Canada. And then when the market corrected and gold market and silver markets corrected in 2011, he had a very difficult performance period himself. Now, Royce had been the largest shareholder, outside shareholder in Sprott from the fall of 2008 and they still remain one of the largest shareholders today. So I got to know Eric Sprott, you, Rick, as well as Peter Grosskopf, the CEO, former CEO, who was in that role for 12 years until a year ago. And I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. I'm a contrarian, I'm a value investor and a long-term investor. Maybe I could help do with Sprott what I had helped do at Royce, which was gather up all the talent available in the middle of a bear market for what we were doing. Back then in the 90s, it was small cap value. I thought the same thing could be done at Sprott. Eric, decided that he would much prefer to manage his own money. His style and approach is quite aggressive. Lots of small, very volatile stocks. He's been very, very successful. But those then in power had decided that they needed to diversify away, which was kind of not what I had anticipated. I spent my first year and a half cooped up in a little office here in Darien, Connecticut. I had a lot of experience with mutual funds. They were trying to build a Canadian mutual fund business without any experience. I thought, well, that should be easy. But again, I think they wanted no part of me or Eric Sprott at that point. And so I commiserated with Rick. Full disclosure here, Rick is the largest shareholder, but he's talking to the second largest shareholder, most of which I bought in the open market myself. And be warned that we might be enthusiastic about this. So in any event, in the summer of 2017, we split Sprott in two. The mutual fund managers in Canada that were, in my opinion, diversifying us away from our core strength and brand, i.e. precious metals, went on their way, and we began to build what Sprott is today. Starting in the fall of 2017, with an acquisition of the old Central Fund of Canada, which is a closed-end fund, which we converted to one of our physical trusts. Since then, I think back in 17, we started out with just under 5 billion in assets under management. Currently, we have in excess of 25 billion. So it's been a wonderful ride with lots of help and support from Rick. And we've done it through a combination of some fairly strategic acquisitions when nobody else was paying attention, great product innovation, which I'll talk about a little bit more. And finally, we've had some market appreciation, but again, a lot of the time we've been operating with headwinds, which we do not expect to continue for very much longer, if at all.
Whitney, I think it's fair to say that I'm sorry, go ahead.
So my role evolved. I was coming here to be a shareholder and supportive. I did not intend to become the CEO, but in working with all of the various teams, I got to know the business well. I helped sort out some problems. Not everything we bought, when Eric Sprott was on his way out, worked out. So lots of problems to solve, and here I am. I did have a lot of experience as president since 2019. So, and I am an asset manager first and foremost and exclusively. Sorry, Rick.
I need to say, by way of editorial comment, given that you're the second largest shareholder and I believe the largest private client, there's nobody better placed to be CEO of Sprott than you. Let's talk now about the company as it sits today. And I think our attendees want to know about the company from 2 points of view: as potential consumers of Sprott products, the physical trusts, the ETFs, the managed equities, the wealth management group, and also as potential shareholders. One, I think, needs to like the products of a company in order to want to be a shareholder of the company. So let's talk about Sprott's products and services and what differentiates it from the rest of the financial services community, particularly with regards to natural resources and precious metals.
So we are specialists. We are focused. We have more talent in the managed equity side. Our team has about 200 years of experience managing mining companies in precious metals. We have some very unique products. Our closed-end fund physical trusts, which were created after the financial crisis for those that were concerned about counterparty risk. Our closed-end funds, they have the ability that store the metal at the Royal Canadian Mint in the case of gold and silver, and but they have the ability to issue additional shares through an at-the-market process at a premium and go out and buy more material. They can also be redeemed if they were to trade at a large discount by arbitrageurs who would buy the shares and sell the physical metals and take delivery. They are somewhat unique because they represent ownership in the physical material, and everybody can be certain, where it is stored. They've grown very, very nicely. They tend to attract longer-term investors. They're not necessarily as liquid as some of the cheaper alternatives out there, GLD being, sort of the standard. However, if you want certainty that the material is there, they add that comfort. We were primarily known for precious metals and both physical and mining until about 2 years ago. We had been working for some time on buying a corporation that bought and stored physical uranium called Uranium Participation Corp, which had been in the market for quite some time without much sponsorship. We acquired that and converted it into one of our physical trusts. That put us in a whole new line of business and what is now deemed as energy transition materials. We were probably luckier than good in terms of our timing. Actually, we would have preferred to have bought that a year earlier or so. But that occurred 2 years ago, just as the world was waking up and discovering the importance of nuclear power in any of the global decarbonization goals. That was step one. We then acquired an ETF that holds uranium miners, the Sprott Uranium Miners ETF. That ETF was added to 2 ETFs we had in the precious metal space, a junior miners and a senior miners, which have been around for some time. They are not market cap weighted. They are factor based. And so To that mix, we have now added this year 5 additional ETFs. They're very small, but they give investors a pure play in what we used to call base metals and are renaming critical materials. Sometimes to get somebody's interest in something that's been around for centuries, you need to give it a new name. So we have a junior copper miners, a junior lithium miners, nickel miners, a junior uranium miners, and then an energy transition ETF that combines all of those materials that are going to be critical for the electrification, of power sources. So on top of that, we actively managed equities. We have some private strategies in addition to John Hathaway, who I didn't mention. We acquired his business and closed in 2020. There were no other takers for that business, so we're very happy with the price. But again, the gold and silver mining industry have been challenged, really for the last decade, and we think we have much better days in front of us. What did I miss?
I think it's fair to say, and what we might call redundant assets, a small wealth management business, which will be a retail wealth management business, which will be present in Boca Raton, and also, of course, the lending business, where we have some durable competitive advantages.
So, Rick, we serve clients of all sizes, from
Right.
the largest pension institutions in the country, in North America, down to small individual investors who are just getting started. We have products to address all of those markets. We have private partnerships that invest in the debt of mining companies. And we have private partnerships that invest in streams and royalties for mining companies. Typically, those are very large institutional investors. Then we have a host of products, the ETFs I mentioned, the physical trust I mentioned. I brought a closed-end general fund with me when I joined from Royce called the Sprott Focus Trust. And we have a wealth management business which serves individual investors who are like-minded and would like a combination of inflation-protected yield as well as exposure to the mining industry. I'd say a third of our managers have degrees in geology. It's very much in our DNA. The wealth management business is something I'm passionate about. I have put my family office into the Sprott Wealth Management system. I think for me, it's the most enjoyable part of the business from this stage is helping people, having direct relationships with clients, and actually being able to help them build and preserve their net worth after fees, after taxes, and after inflation.
Sprott will be, as it always has been, an important sponsor and contributor to this conference. Ed Coyne, who is a product specialist, will be there, as well as several representatives from the wealth management business. What I would like, Whitney, is for the attendees who are able to be in touch with Sprott, either before the conference, during the conference, or after the conference, to have a couple names of living, breathing human beings who can help them navigate the big business that Sprott has become. So if you could give them a couple names and how to get in touch with them.
I think if they're interested in products, Ed Coyne is a great place to start. He has a team with regional coverage. They are very responsive, and they will direct to the right individual ultimately in the organization that can best serve their needs. And then if people are interested in learning more about Sprott Inc., Glenn Williams is our head of corporate communications. And again, he is happy to talk to shareholders or potential new shareholders, as in fact I am as well. We're in very good shape right now. I have some extra time. I intended to be spent on customer-facing activities and shareholder-facing activities. I think we've come a long way, but with this energy transition thematic and new products that we have launched and are preparing to launch, I think we have really a decade of incredible growth in front of us. not to mention, a higher gold price, which is now making its fourth trip to around, 2,000, and one day will break out, would make that trip, even more fun.
Whitney, I want to thank you personally for your labors on behalf of Sprott shareholders and customers the past few years. I'd like to thank you too, both personally and on behalf of your organization, for your ongoing support of the Natural Resources Investment Symposium. We look forward to interviewing you in longer form on Rural Investment Media in the future, and we look forward to Sprott's participation in future conferences. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rick. I look forward to a longer conversation, and enjoy the conference, everybody. I'm sure you will learn a lot.